Your desk setup shouldn't be underestimated or overlooked. If you're doing most of your work at your desk, this place should be your sanctuary. It should be inviting so that you want to be here. At the same time, it should also be optimized to help you work as efficiently as possible. Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Matt, and today I wanted to go over my setup since I've been asked about a lot of the things in my setup. Everything will be linked in the description, so if you're interested in anything, feel free to check them out, or if you have any questions, just drop it down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to respond. Alright, let's get into it. To start things off, the core of everything is my Mac Mini. This is the version with the new M2 Pro chip, and I did not upgrade anything on it. So the specs are M2 Pro chip, 16 gigs of memory, and 512 gigabyte SSD. I've done a couple of videos doing a real-world test for editing 4K with Final Cut and Premiere Pro, so go check those out if you are interested in purchasing this machine for video editing. I will be doing a video to test editing with DaVinci. I'm in the process of learning some basics in DaVinci before I start putting it to the test, so if you're interested, make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for that. One of the things I love about the Mac Mini is the form factor. I'm all about minimalism and having a clean look. I know when it comes to video editing, having accessible ports is huge, and this is one of the drawbacks of the Mac Mini design. The ports are all on the back. There are hubs out there like the one made by Satechi that sit under the Mac Mini with accessible ports on the front to give you the same convenience as the Mac Studio. I really thought about it, and maybe in the future I'll pick one up, but for now what I do instead is have a hub attached to my desk and run the cable to the back of my Mac Mini. I still have the accessible ports I need, and I get to maintain the Mac Mini's clean look. I think in the future if I do pick up the Satechi hub, it's going to be mainly for the feature to install an SSD into it. The one piece of equipment that I get asked a lot about is my monitor. The monitor I'm using is a 28-inch Samsung UR55 4K monitor. It's a budget-friendly monitor costing less than $300 US. It has a 60Hz refresh rate, which is enough for my use as I'm not gaming on this setup. The only other important aspect of the monitor for editing videos is color reproduction. Out of the box, it is pretty saturated, which is not a surprise coming from Samsung. I personally prefer a saturated look when I'm watching content, but for editing, I have to be a little bit more careful and watch my scopes a little closer to make sure things are more balanced. It's still definitely usable for editing. I've read from others that after calibrating, it's a lot better. For now, it works fine for me, and maybe one day I'll upgrade to Apple's Studio Display. One other thing is the monitor stand. This isn't the stand that came with the monitor. What I don't like about the stand, aside from the legs that waste a lot of space, is that it's not height adjustable and can only tilt. This stand has a tempered glass base and I can change the height. Not the most convenient way, but it's not really often that you need to change the height, so it doesn't bother me that much. I can also swivel and turn the monitor if needed. Above my monitor is a phone mount. Instead of having a dedicated webcam, there were two options. One is to use my Sony a6300. As great as the image quality is, it's just a bit cumbersome, especially if I still need to use the camera. The only other option is using my iPhone. Many people will say the Apple ecosystem is where you can experience the value of Apple products, and this is a great example. Continuity feature in the Apple ecosystem allows me to use my iPhone as my webcam and mic when I need to hop on a video call with clients. The beauty of this feature is I don't need to go into the settings and change anything. Everything is automatic after just mounting my iPhone. I also hate the spring-loaded phone mounts, so I prefer this where I can just turn the knob. Next up is my monitor riser. I made this by purchasing a wall shelf from Home Depot and gluing a couple of 3-inch MDF slots I already had and painted them matte black. Easy DIY for so much function because not only does it raise my monitor eye level, but now I open a bit more real estate and can organize my desk more effectively. This is a tray from a brand called Uncrowned Kings, where they make trays and other desk accessories. Having a tray just allows me to throw small loose objects like my AirPods, SD cards, or a coin for those annoying camera mounting plates. My iPad is a huge part of my setup that allows me to work more efficiently. If I'm editing on my Mac Mini, I normally use my iPad as either a second monitor or I extend my keyboard and mouse to the iPad. There's a difference between the two features because one is actually having my iPad as a second monitor for my Mac Mini. This is helpful for times when I need two screens for the same application. So for example, if I'm editing and instead of throwing all my assets into the editing platform, I can just have them in a separate window and drag into my edit as needed. Sure, it can be faster throwing everything into the editor and that way I can scrub from there, but sometimes depending on the project, I might have a lot of different assets that are organized into their own subfolders that I can already navigate through and around pretty quickly. The other option of extending your keyboard and mouse to the iPad means I have my iPad open, but it's still just my iPad rather than displaying off my Mac Mini, and my keyboard and mouse will work with both my Mac Mini and my iPad, easily being able to interchange between the two like as if my iPad was an extension of my Mac. Where this is useful is if I'm using two different apps, whether I'm consuming content while working, or even having a document open to make notes or review notes while I edit without lifting my hand to interact with the iPad. Some of these features that are part of the Apple ecosystem really show the power and convenience of having Apple products. The small attention to detail and benefit you get from having all these products talk to each other give you a more fluid and efficient experience. I'm using the Keychron K4 full layout keyboard. Yes, I like minimalism, but I also love the feedback I get from a mechanical keyboard. I also need the full layout for number keys because I'm much more used to using the number pad versus the keys above the letters. It's backlit with a bunch of light up patterns. It's not RGB, which I don't really care for. I haven't had many issues with this keyboard at all. It works and continues to work because sometimes when you purchase cheap keyboards or accessories, they just stop working after a while. My only complaint with this keyboard is I wish I had some sort of battery indicator. I only know when the battery is low when it starts to miss strokes and feels like it's lagging. One other thing about this keyboard, and I'm not sure if it's a Keychron thing, but if your keyboard completely dies on you, you can't just plug in the cable and continue. You have to plug in the cable, switch it to the off position, and then switch it back to the cable position. Not a huge deal, but strange considering most keyboards will just work again after you plug it in. My mouse is a Logitech MX Master 3S. I've used a lot of different mice over the course of my whole life, and I can confidently say, just like most other reviewers out there, that this is the best mouse I've ever used. It's comfortable, the finish is soft, I don't really need to speak on the performance, and it feels so well built. The button clicks are soft and muted, the scroll wheels don't feel loose or cheap, and my favorite part about this mouse is a second scroll wheel, where I can scroll horizontally on my sequence or timeline when editing, and on a browser. I feel like every mouse out there should have this second scroll wheel. It's become a necessity for me. The other buttons are programmed for things like back and forward in a browser, but this third button allows me to switch between desktops on my Mac, which is great for fast multitasking. I have a simple wrist pad because when I am spending hours using my mouse every day, I started getting wrist pains, and once I started elevating my wrist with this pad, no more pains. So if you're experiencing pain in your wrist, get a pad and see if it'll help. I decided to go back to using a desk mat because it'll prevent scratches on the desk, but also it's quieter and smoother when using my mouse. Going with a felt desk mat always keeps a fresh and clean look. With my desk mats from the past, I found that they show signs of wear by either the color wearing off or even just showing random scuffs. I have a separate clock here, so I can always just glance at the time versus searching for the clock on my screen. My speakers are M Audio AV32 monitors. They were really cheap at like $100 at the time, and I've used them for about 6 years now. These speakers give me a fuller audio experience and they can get pretty loud. My desk is just a cheap $30 IKEA tabletop mounted on top of a motorized base that I got off Prime Cables. At the time, standing desks were just gaining popularity pre-pandemic, and I didn't think one with presets was necessary. Thinking back, I do regret not getting presets because I can just push a button instead of holding on to it. Not a huge deal, but every second matters when your workflow require as much efficiency as possible. My desk will be something I'll look into upgrading in the future, but for now, it's totally fine. My chair is the autonomous Ergo Core chair. At the time, it was much cheaper than the Ergo Pro, and it has a leg rest so you can go into full recliner mode. The reasons why I chose this chair. However, today, the Ergo Core is actually pretty similar priced as the Ergo Pro. I realize though that having a leg rest isn't a necessity for me, as I am never in a recliner mode to be consuming content on my desk. I'm here to work, and so I need comfort and efficiency. The Ergo Pro gives the full back support. I'll probably be upgrading my chair before I upgrade my desk. When it comes to your workstation, do not overlook your chair because it's something you're sitting on for hours on end, and so comfort is key. Comfort aside, you need something that is going to give you proper back support and is ergonomic, and keeps your arms and legs at 90 degrees. Trust me, over time you will start to feel it if you don't have a chair and desk that's optimized for your body. Last thing I'll cover on my setup is lighting. I have nano-leaf panels to light up my desk area, but also set the ambiance. During the day and when I'm doing more admin work, I need them to be set to a more productive environment, so they're usually just white. Later in the evening, if I need to wind down, I'll set them to a warmer color. If I'm editing, sometimes I change the colors and patterns to colors that promote creativity like blue and green. I've found it really helps me get into a creative zone and helps me with experimenting new things when editing. If you haven't read anything into color science, I recommend reading and learning about it, because even aside from your desk setup or just having fancy RGB lighting in your room, understanding color science will help you when color grading your videos to set the tone and the mood. I also have an RGB strip on the back of my monitor and desk to add the ambiance, as well as depending on what the nanoleaf panels are set to. Or if I just need minimal lighting and turn the nanoleaf off, just having the glow behind my monitor and desk helps with the mood. Lastly, I have the GVM P80 video light. I know that aperture is almost industry standard, or Godox for a more budget-friendly option. This light though was even cheaper at less than $200 and came with the light box, honeycomb, and stand. Can't really beat that price, and performance has been pretty solid. I use it to light up my entire desk area, and I have full control over brightness. I haven't leveraged the honeycomb as much, as that would be more useful when I decide to go on camera. Without the honeycomb, it's plenty bright, and I use it to light up my product shoots. I've even taken it into a studio to light up my subjects, and it was perfectly fine. Some reviewers stated loud fan noise. I'll say that yes, you hear it, but not enough to really bother you or impact anything. Even for video, I haven't been picking up the fan noise from any of my mics. So I'm not sure if those guys had the camera or mic right next to the light or something, which would be a really strange camera placement, but I haven't encountered any issues with fan noise. Finally, there's also an app that I can use on my phone to adjust the brightness and turn the light on and off, which is really convenient so I don't have to fiddle with the knob on the light itself. One thing to keep in mind though is that you cannot control the color temperature with the light. Oh, and cable management is clean and messy and could be better, but something I'll think about when I upgrade my desk. So that's my setup for now, and it has constantly been evolving and will probably change again at some point. I hope this inspires you in some areas, and let me know if you have any questions about setups or anything about my setup, and just drop it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like as it'll help the channel, and subscribe so we can continue to grow this channel and community together. Thanks for watching.